Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you a requested video of how to make a crisscross corset gown. So I have a similar dress on my channel, so what I'm just going to do is just to go ahead and I'm going to alter that pattern. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button.
First, this is the pattern I'm going to be drafting with, and the first thing I'm going to mark is to mark my vertical measurement, which is my shoulder to bust line, my shoulder to under bust line, and my shoulder to waistline. So after my waistline, I'm going to measure about 4 inches for my basque. So right now you can go ahead and use 4 inches, or you can use 3 to 5 inches depending on how deep you want yours to be.
While looking at the thumbnail also, you notice that one of the gowns actually started at the waistline and the other one was below the waistline, so you can add about 1 to 2 inches to your waistline if you want yours to be lower than your waistline. So when marking the depth of your basque,
4 and 5 is okay. So after doing that, I'll just go at the top of my pattern paper. I will go ahead and mark my shoulder divided by 2. So this is an off shoulder pattern and will not be making use of the upper part that much. So I'm just doing this so that it will be more easier to understand. So from that point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, and I'll go ahead to just place and draw a line to the tip of my pattern paper. So the next step I'm going to take is to place, and I will get my chest line. So to get your chest line is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I will make a mark at that point, connect it back to my shoulder, and I will draw a straight line on that point indicating my chest line. So I'll just take my marker and write this as CL, showing that it is my chest line. So the next step I'm going to take is to place my marker, and I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. Mine is 7 divided by 2. I have 3.5. I'm going to mark that at my chest line, at my bust line, at my under bust line, at my waistline, and at my basque length line. So after doing that, the next step is to place my ruler, and I'll go ahead to connect and draw a straight line. After that, I'm going to place my ruler at my armhole, and I'll find the middle of my armhole. I'll go in by ½ inch, and from that point I'm going to place my French curve, connect it down to my chest line, and from that point I'm going to connect it upwards down to the shoulder point. After that, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to outline that point. The next step is to mark my dart intake at both sides of my under bust. I'm going to be marking 1 inch. So if you're on the plus size, you'll be marking 1.5 inches. I'll do that at my waist and at my basque length also. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is just to take my ruler and pencil, and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line at that point. From that point, I'll go ahead and use my marker, and I'll go ahead to outline the lines at that point. So the next thing I'll do is to get my bust radius, and your bust radius is the distance between your bust and under bust. So I'll go ahead and mark that round. So mine is 3 inches. I'll take that 3 inches round. So after marking that, I'm going to place my French curve touching my bust point down to my under bust, and I'm going to make a curve. So at the other part, I'll also be repeating the same thing. Place my French curve touching my under bust and my bust line. After marking that, I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline that curve, and this is what I have. So from my chest line, I'm going to come in by ½ inch, and on that point I'm going to extend it down to my bust line this way, and this is what I have. So from here I'll be drawing my cup. So now I'm going to place my French curve touching this point, that mark I made, and I'll place my tape and I will get my bust gauge. And to get your bust gauge, you're going to place your tape this way and you're going to measure 1.25 or 1.2 inches, and you're going to go ahead to connect right from the mark on top down to your under bust. So after drawing that, this is what I have at this point, and this is what it is looking like. The next step I'll take is to place my ruler and I'll extend that line I have at the center upwards. So at that point that my bust radius stopped on top, I'll be using that point as my guide. Placing my tape at my chest line and measuring what I have there, you notice that I have 2 inches from my chest line down to my bust radius on top. So you can go ahead and use that, but if you want yours to be a bit lower, you can go down by 1.5 inches. So after that, I'll place my tape, mark my 1 inch dart. After marking my 1 inch dart, I'm going to go ahead to go up by ½ inch this point. So why am I doing this? Is just to make sure I don't have a pointy curve at that point. So I'll go ahead, place my French curve, I'll connect it down to the upper part of my bust radius this way. After doing that, I'll be repeating the same process for the other side. So after doing that, the next thing I'll do is just to outline this part at the front part of my corset, and I'll be drawing my cup. So when you're drawing this, take note, any shape you have here is how your cup will be looking like. So I went ahead to place my French curve and I made a curve at that part, and the next thing I'll do is to go ahead to use my marker, and I'm going to go ahead to outline that part of my cup this way. Now to draw my cup on the other side, I'm going to place my tape at my chest line and I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I will mark. So what I'll do is the distance between these two lines, I'm going to divide it into 2 and I'm going to mark. So at that point, I will be drawing my cup. So I'll go ahead to place my French curve touching that point and my under bust, and I'm going to draw my cup this way. So this is what I have at this point, and I'll go ahead to outline it with my marker. After doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to outline my cup at this part. Now I'll be placing my French curve and I'll connect from the tip down to the side part of my cup. But before I do that, you're going to make sure that this part meets with the other part of your cup. This is very important because you don't want one side of your cup being bigger than the other side. So I'll go ahead to draw my cup styling up on top just this way, and this is what I have, and I'll go ahead to outline it out with my marker, and this is what it is looking like. I'll go ahead and label my cup with A and B. So if you want to make yours a 3-part corset, you can just go ahead and make a mark across and connect, making a 3-part corset. So next is to take my body circumference, and to do that, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to measure the dart I have at the upper part and I will be replacing it. So after marking that, I'll go ahead to add my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So this is not a constant, you can use more than that or you can use less if you want to. So whatever I have at the bust, at the chest line, I'll be transferring it at the bust line and I'll connect it this way. At my under bust, I'll measure my under bust circumference divided by 4 and I'll measure my dart intake and I'll replace my dart. Go ahead, mark my sewing allowance, and at my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace it, and I will mark my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inches. So at my waist, at my basque length, whatever I have at my waistline is what I'll be transferring, because this is not going to touch the hip line, like we are going to cut it from the waist, so there's no need marking my my hip circumference at that point. So after doing this, I'll go ahead to use my marker, and I'm going to connect from my waist down to my basque length, and from that point I will extend it down to my under bust, and from my under bust I will extend it back to my bust line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and use my marker, and I will outline all my measurements. Now go ahead and label the front side as C meaning center and S meaning side. So before I start creating the basque, I'm just going to cut out my pattern first. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. So after cutting, you notice I didn't cut out the cup. So what I'll do now is to merge my pattern, and I'll make sure the under bust meets the under bust and the waistline meets from the waistline, and I'll go ahead to tape it up. Now to draw my basque, I'm going to go ahead and measure out that my sewing allowance, and I'll make a mark at that point. So why I'm doing this is just so that the waistline is going to match the one we have at the back.
So while looking at one of the dress also at the thumbnail, you find out that one actually started at the waistline and the other one started below the waistline. So it totally depends on where you want yours to start. So I would like mine to start from the waistline.
That part of my corset, creating a basque this way, as easy as that. And what I will do next is just to go ahead and I will cut it out. So after cutting it out, I will go ahead and cut out my cup this way. Sorry, that part of the video didn't show very well because of the brightness from the sun. So after cutting it out, this is what I have for my front pattern, and with this we'll be moving over to draft the back pattern. So moving over to my back pattern, this is just a plain paper that I have. I just went ahead to mark out 1 inch for my zipper allowance. So what I'll be doing right now is to place my pattern on it, but before I do that, I'm just going to place my ruler, and I'm going to rule out a straight line. This is where my pattern will be starting. So to make my back pattern very easy, I'm just going to place this starting from that mark I have on top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to use my tape, and I'm going to hold down the front pattern on top of the back pattern. I'm done holding it down with my sellotape, so I'm going to take note of my waistline, and from that point I'm just going to take my pattern up following my waistline this way. So after doing this right now, what I'll do is just to go ahead and place my ruler, and I'm going to rule a straight line at that point. So this is what I have. So after that, I'll just go ahead and take my scissors, and I'm going to cut out that point at my waistline. So note, you're not cutting out your front pattern, you're just taking it up to cut out your waistline. And at the upper part, I'll just go ahead to cut at that line that I have made. So when you're cutting out, you notice that one part is a bit lower. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead to make a line at that point, matching the upper part of the back pattern, and I will go ahead to trim off at that point. So after cutting out that point, I will just go ahead also and cut the sides of my corset. So as you can see, the back pattern is very easy. You can go ahead and draft a full back pattern if you want to, but if you want it to be easier and faster for you, you can go ahead to do this. So after cutting my back pattern, this is what I have. What I'll do is to mark ½ inch at the zipper side, and I'm going to mark that point, and I will take it up to the upper part. Sorry, this is not really showing. I didn't notice this. This is because of the brightness of the sun was too much. So I'll just go ahead and cut out that side. So with this, my back pattern is ready. So after cutting out, this is my back pattern and this is my front pattern. So for the lower part of the dress and the puffy sleeve, we're going to be doing that when we are actually sewing the dress. We'll be cutting that directly on the sleeve. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. If you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please hit on the subscribe button and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and see you in our next video. Thanks.